Thank you, everybody. It's with great pleasure that I share my experience of developing people and leading large teams at Olympic Games. It represents such a wonderful time of my life, extraordinary, amazing. In fact, when I was preparing for this presentation last week, my mum and I started crying because it's quite an emotional thing. And in preparing it, I did relive every moment, and it made me realize how much I'd achieved and all the wonderful people that I'd met across the world. And you can't, it's just absolutely incredible. I chose to speak today because, of course, it's perfect timing. We've got the Rio 2016 starting tonight. All my friends are very stressed out at this moment in time. And also 32 years ago today, my father died. And both of these things have played a critical part in my life and my story. And that's why I really chose to live an extraordinary life and run my own race. I come from a family who loves sport. They love lots of beer as well, but that's another story. And I was incredibly good at sport too. And every year I would excel on the athletics track. And every year my dad would take me down to the sports field and prepare me for sports day. I was also great at netball. I was captain of the netball on the hockey team, and I scored over 30 goals a season at hockey, and that was a goal that my father had set. So he was quite instrumental in my life. It was always a dream of mine to compete in the Olympics. I was a sprinter. I wanted to do the 100 meters and the 200 meters. But unfortunately, due to a back injury and a transfer from my dad's job to India, put a bit of a halt on that Olympic dream. It also impacted my education a bit, and also I was separated from my family for a while. Excuse me, it's thirsty work this. But on the 5th of August, 1984, my father took his life after an unsuccessful bypass operation. And on top of that, my best friend lost her aunt, uncle, cousin, dog in a fatal car accident. So I would say that day I really grew up. It taught me that there's always somebody worse off than you, and that we should be kind to each other because we don't know what their story is. That you have to tell people that you love them, obviously if you feel it, because you don't know how long they're going to be in your life for. That you have to find your passion and do it with all of your heart, because life's too short. What's the point of staying in a crap job or a relationship that's unfulfilling? To make a difference, but also to keep moving forward, no matter what life throws at you. So my philosophy really was in order to do all of that, was I needed to run my own race and be all that I could be. So in my career, I've worked for some really great companies. I did a lot of work in the oil industry before getting into events and living all over the world, delivering Olympic Games. The Olympic Games is the largest multi-sporting event in the world, and there's so many aspects to it. But the thing that I love about it is that it brings everybody together in a peaceful way, and it just shows you the best of humanity. It makes you think about achieving more and being more. So there's a wonderful human side to the whole thing. And obviously it gives an opportunity for the host city and the country to show the best of themselves, to create new friends, to generate business. And really that's what it's all about. So my dream changed. My dream changed from wanting to compete in the games to saying, okay, all right, well, I'll go and work for them instead. And that's what I did. But it's those intangible benefits that really get to me every time, and that's why it gets quite emotional for me. Because every games I've worked on, you see the nation come alive. People start to believe that in possibilities for them. They dare to dream. It also inspires people to get into sport and be more active. And all of these things, with this, the national pride side of it as well, all of these things are priceless to me. The scale of the games is absolutely massive. You've got so many people to try and keep happy. From the public, to the broadcasters, to the press, to the athletes. Who else is there? The IOC, the government. It's pretty huge, and it takes an awful lot to plan. We need a really great project management methodology coupled with integrated planning cycles that go across the organization with about 30 plus functional areas, as we call them. Departments is probably the easiest way to say. Some facts and figures that I've used from London 2012 is, we're looking at 10,500 Olympic athletes from over 205 nations, 4,500 Paralympic athletes from 165 nations. 4 billion people watched the opening ceremony of London 2012. 4 billion people. You can't put a price on advertising for that. 9.6 million in ticket sales, 20,000 accredited media, 50,000 games makers, all of these people you have to accredit, uniform, train. It's pretty complex. And the wonderful thing, we generated 10 billion worth of revenue into the British economy. It's absolutely huge. I want to share some stories. Some fun, some not so fun, just to give you a sense of my experience. My first games was Sydney 2000. It's what I call my first love. And it really took me to another level in my career and my management value. I worked for an American contractor who had done Atlanta. They had the expertise, and their assignment was to provide spectator services, planning and delivery across a number of different venues, mainly competition venues, but a few non-competition venues. And I did the planning initially, I was there 2 years. I did the planning for 5 venues, and then my games time venue was rowing and canoe sprint. A really incredible venue from an aesthetic point of view, but also fantastic because, of course, we won lots of medals there with Steve Redgrave and Party. But a month before the games is typically when we do an awful lot of our volunteer training, just before the lockdown of the venue, when security come in and make it clean, so there's no bombs or hazardous material in there. I had 400 volunteers in which to train, and that was being spread out across a number of days. And this particular day, about 90 volunteers showed up. And we were about to get going with the training, and all they did was I don't want to be here. I didn't ask to be at this venue. I don't want to work in this function, this department. I'm like, oh my God. I'd just done some additional recruitment about a month before that. So I'm like, oh my God, I have to go out there again. I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I kept calm, and I said, well, thank you for coming here today. If you really are unhappy, thanks for showing up. Would you be open to me going through the training so you understand what your role is? And we take you on a tour of the venue so you get familiar with your venue and where we perform some of these roles. And then you can come back to the training room, and if you still don't want to, help us out, then we'll deal with it then. And they said, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And I'm like, oh, phew. And so we did the training. We took them on the tour. I mean, these are Australians. They really call a spade a spade. So you talk about heckling before. It's like, I've had it with Australians particularly. So we did the training. We took them on the tour, and I had all my paid staff taking them around the venue with shuttle buses and stuff, because it was a massive venue, of course, with the rowing lake, 1,500 meters long. And then we came back to the training room, and I said, okay, guys, how do you feel? Do you love the venue as much as I do? And they said, yeah, we'll do it. So I'm like, thank God for that. The only thing I had to change at that time was maybe some schedule changes. The games went absolutely wonderfully. Antonio Samaranch, who was the head of the IOC at the time, said that it was the best volunteers that they'd ever had at that moment. And one of the amazing things was all of these volunteers coming up to me and saying that I'd helped to change their life, or this experience had changed their life, and that they've got, forever friendships, and they thanked me for my, for my excellent leadership. So you can see how it can get pretty emotional at times. On to Salt Lake. Salt Lake was my second one. Again, working for the American company. It felt easy to start with because Sydney was pretty tough in planning. As I say, they call a spade a spade. And plus I was working for an American company, and they weren't too happy that we were there. So working in Salt Lake seemed very easy to start with, and I only had one venue to plan. But of course, 9/11 happened, and that's put an awful lot of pressure on us. We had to change all our designs in the venue. We had to look at the fence line, look at the standoff distance between the field of play and the security fence line, and also what we call dirty areas, where people are unscreened. Because everybody that comes into a venue needs to go through needs to either be accredited or have a ticket and go through the security screening. And likewise with vehicles, the vehicle needs to be checked. It also needs to have a vehicle permit. So there's all these security aspects to the games now, unfortunately. I think it was about day 2 of the games. I got a radio call from the venue communication center, and they said there's a code red. Now, usually, code white would mean this is the only games that's done this actually, but code white would be, yeah, we're going to have a meeting, take your time, sort of thing. Code red, that something's either going to happen or they've got intelligence about something going to happen, and you need to get down there as soon as possible. And so we got in the meeting with all the key functional areas, and the venue commander, which is law enforcement basically, told us the story of what had happened at 5 o'clock that morning at the vehicle screening area. A guy in military gear had turned up at the vehicle screening area with the proper accreditation, with a vehicle permit, and he, was maybe a little bit sort of cocky, arrogant, feeling, trying to sort of come across as very familiar to the rest of the military people that were in there. And he went off to the loo, and one of the military guys, one of the army guys said, "I don't have a good feeling about this guy. I'm not comfortable with him." And so they proceeded to thoroughly check the vehicle. I think maybe because he felt, he came across as familiar, they may just not, check it as thoroughly as they might. They went into the back of the truck, and there was about 5 machine guns, grenades, knives, it still makes me go cold actually, a full range of arsenal in which to create pretty serious havoc at our venue. So thank God that military guy, went with his intuition, his gut feel that something didn't feel right, and we avoided a major disaster. So that's not, there's usual threats and things like that at every games, but that was one that was thankfully that, I was involved in and was party to. Athens was an interesting one. I didn't actually go there right away because I didn't feel that my personality would fit with the culture. I'm very, boom, 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 let's get this thing done. And they, I'm generalizing here a bit, but, they would just want to smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and, and complain about the world and so forth. So I'm like, I'm not sure that would work with me. I might get really irritated. But actually, I did end up going. I was asked to, they were having problems within the department, and I was asked to go and see if I could turn it around, and talk to the team, and found out really that they were, lacking support, lacking training. They weren't being given the tools and techniques that we learned from all these different games. They weren't being shared with them, and they didn't really trust the company either. So I really, became the spokesperson for them really. put together training manuals. We did an awful lot of practical training. Found, that very much their way of learning was much more practical and doing it and feeling it. So really was able to turn that department around. Even persuaded the leadership team to do all of our training in Greek as well. And I think I got a lot of respect for that. So you really have to adapt to every games and every culture that you go to. Vancouver. Vancouver, I was working directly for the organising committee for venue management in a very, very senior role, and I was there 4 years before the games. So I had the wonderful opportunity to shape everything that we did. The recruitment, the operational planning, the design and operations of the venues. I absolutely loved it. And also setting up our induction training, because to me, you can have great plans, but if you haven't got really good people that are trained, then, it's a bit of a waste of time. I ended up being a venue general manager at the main media centre. It's just the way things happened. Mainly because I'd recruited everybody for all the bigger venues, and I ended up in a non-comp venue. But the great thing was that I'd done all the planning. I'd established great relationships with the venue owners, and I had 3 of them. But the venue was pretty complex. In fact, it was 2 venues that were interconnected and very complex because it was in the heart of the city of Vancouver, and we were 2 roads going in, and we were surrounded by water. So it was very problematic, challenging from a security perspective and transportation perspective, and we had to integrate very well with the businesses around who would be impacted pretty much. Day 1 of the games was pretty horrendous. We had a death of an athlete. We had riots. We had lots of sun, which meant we had to fly in extra snow to the snowboarding venue, which is in the heart of the city. Not in the heart of the city, but in the mountains. Fly in snow, and also had to make a lot of snow as well. So it was a very emotional time, very, very challenging for everybody. And as I said, I was at the main media centre, and the main media centre, there's 2 sides to it. You've got the broadcasters and you've got the press. 2 of the most demanding stakeholders in the games. We had an increase in scope, basically, because what happened was, the Olympic flame is usually in the Olympic Stadium, burning brightly and everybody can see it. Well, the Olympic Stadium in Vancouver had a roof on it, an inflatable roof. So the idea was that they would develop and build a new flame. And they decided to put it right next door to our IBC, the International Broadcast Centre, but obviously within the secure fence line. And we didn't really appreciate, because you're so sort of focused on what you're doing, that hundreds of thousands of people would come down to our venue to look at this, amazing flame that they've created. So we had to change our fence line because there was so much complaints from the public that they couldn't see it. We had to change our fence line to move it in with obviously the agreement from the RCMP, the police. We had to put a screen so that they could actually look at it. Plexiglass. And the other wonderful thing about it was that there was an empty restaurant that we could actually take people on the roof and down. So that's what we did. We worked with workforce to get additional volunteers down, and we had people actually literally going on the roof, taking pictures, and then coming off. It was like a cycle. So we have, with working in the Olympics, it's a great success. But working in the Olympics, it's just constant change. You're changing leadership. You're constant changing with planning cycles, and the inevitable scope creep that can come in. So it's a major growth. And I learned so many things from that experience, and all of those things can be translated right across your life. One of the things that I felt was we really need to treat ourselves like elite athletes. So if you've got a vision that you are going for, you've got to think about What does it need? What do I need to get myself there? What's my support team looks like? What's holding me back? What food do I need if I want, if food do I eat if I want to perform at my very best? What do I need in terms of my mindset? Always keep the vision in front of you. There's times when, we had major challenges that we always went back to. We always took ourselves back to the why. Why are we doing this? And we were watching opening ceremonies, and that was all we needed to really get back into that really great positive vibration to take us to the end goal. Never underestimate the positive impact that you can have on somebody's life. It's just unbelievable. Balance is key. Balance is key. I had severe burnout after Vancouver, and I've spent an awful lot of time trying to get my health back on track. So try and, we all need to try and balance. Don't get so busy, if I can remember this phrase, don't get busy making a business but not building a life. Building relationships is key. I used to say to my team, we can have a solid plan, but if we haven't built the right relationships, we may not succeed. We may not get over that finish line. So building the right relationships is fine, is key, and choosing your thoughts is absolutely vital if you want to keep on track with where you want to go. I went through a major betrayal in Vancouver. It knocked me for six. It felt like a character assassination. And I remember thinking at that moment, I can choose to be depressed, or I can choose to be positive and look at it as a learning experience. I chose to be depressed for a while because they didn't have any confidence in my ability to deliver the venue, was the words. I was crushed, but I turned it around. So, there's always a good out of a bad situation. So to sort of conclude the presentation, I would say due to a childhood event, I chose to live an extraordinary life. And to do that, I decided to run my own race. And I'll leave you with my favorite quote, which is, go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you imagined. Thank you.